You're listening to the Faeries and Folklore podcast by Ronel. I'm dark fantasy author Ronel Janse van Vuuren. With nearly a decade of digging around in dusty folklore books, researching creatures of imagination that ignited my curiosity, I'm here to share the folklore in a nutshell and how I reimagined it for my writing in An Origin of the Fae. This is the Faeries and Folklore podcast. Hi, I'm your host, Ronel Janse van Vuuren. You can just call me Ronel. In today's episode, we're continuing our exploration of the Fae realm. This episode is brought to you by my Origin of the Fae book series. You've met them on the podcast, now see them in action. Go to ronelthemythmaker.com/Origin of the Fae series for more. And remember, that's Fae with an AE. You can now support my time in producing the podcast, researching, writing, and everything else involved by buying me a coffee. This can be a once-off thing, or you can buy me coffee again in the future at your discretion. Go to buymeacoffee.com/Ronel to support me. Today's subject, the workers of death. We've already met Anko, the king of the dead, and a couple of water fae that are also workers of death, such as sirens and mirrors. Now we need to look at other workers of death and Deathfae. Throughout this season, we'll look at various creatures of legend, fae, and concepts of death, starting with how it all ties together, the Deathfae. You already know what had inspired me to write about Anko, to make him the king of the dead. You can always listen to the earlier episode about him for a refresher. Now let's look at how it all works in my world, in order of importance and rank. Anko, in charge of all the dead. Keeper of the veil, keeps the realm separate, in charge of all the workers of death. Everyone else on this list. Dachter, in charge of keeping souls in the underworld. Vilas, judge who should live and who should die. Mirrors, keep souls until they go to the underworld. Sirens, escort the souls of their victims to the underworld. Black dogs, such as Barghest, Grim, and so forth, hunt souls that have roamed outside of the underworld and take them back to where they belong. Fairies and Valkyries escort souls to their place in the underworld, keeping them to fight at the end of time. Dullahans escort souls to the underworld. Banshees, Aspis, Questing Beast, and others cause death to those marked for death. Fun, right? Obviously, Deathfae like mingling with humans as much as any other fae, so halflings are bound to be born. I hope that you've enjoyed this episode of the Faeries and Folklore podcast and that you've learned something new about Faerie. Remember that you can get a transcript of this episode in the description. If you're new to the podcast, why not go and grab your free copy of Unseen, the second book in the fairy tale series, on my website, ronelthemythmaker.com. Loads of folklore, magic, and danger await. Take care.